War has ravaged the earth ever since the existence of mankind. War created destruction, but also innovation. It is also evolving side by side with society. And there is a new kind of war in the 21st century after the War on Terror. A war that is not fought by soldiers and tanks, but rather by a country's economy. Today at Finance Per, we'll talk about the US-China trade war. But if you like more videos about finance, technology, and business, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The US-China trade war is what we can call an economic conflict. But first, what is an economic conflict? An economic conflict refers to a dispute or clash between individuals, groups, or nations that stems for conflicting economic interests, policies, or resources. Now, these conflicts can arise from issues such as trade imbalances, protectionism, unfair competition, or disagreements over economic regulations. Now, what is the cause of this economic conflict between the US and China? We all know that the relationship between the US and China is not that good. Experts are calling this mutual hate of each other the new Cold War. There is clear competition between China and the US in terms of manufacturing. And Donald Trump, who was a known businessman before becoming the president, advocated tariffs to eliminate US trade deficit and promote domestic manufacturing during the 80s. He also stated that the country was being ripped off by its trading partners. Although the administration of George W. Bush and Barack Obama imposed quotas and tariffs, it was during Donald Trump's presidency that the trade war started. During this 2016 presidential campaign, he promised to reduce US trade deficit with China. He also stated that this is due to unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft, and lack of access by US companies to the Chinese market. On January 2018, Trump announced tariffs on solar panels and washing machines. Now, the US imports about 8% of its solar panels from China, and about $1.1 billion of imports for residential washing machines. Trump also announced in March of that year that steel and aluminum tariffs from all countries will be imposed. The US imports around 3% of its steel from China, and about 11% of aluminum, becoming second only to Canada. Aside from steel and aluminum, Trump also asked United States trade representatives to investigate applying tariffs to $50 to $60 billion worth of Chinese goods. This includes 1,300 categories that consist of aircraft parts, batteries, televisions, medical devices, satellites, and various weapons. China responded by imposing tariffs on 128 American products, including aluminum, airplanes, cars, porks, and soybeans, which have around 25% tariff, and fruits, nuts, and steel piping with 15% on April 2nd. But the US denies any damages from the tariff. US Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross stated that the tariffs only reflected 0.3% of the US GDP, and Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders stated that the moves would have short-term pain, but bring long-term success. China also announced a plan of additional tariffs of 25% on US products such as automobiles, airplanes, and soybeans. Now, why are soybeans being included in this trade war? Almost 95% of soybeans are crushed to produce soy oil used for cooking and soybean meal for animal feeds in China. And soybean is one of the top agricultural imports of the United States to China, accounting for over 50% of agricultural imports, or over $16.4 billion. Now, to combat the reliance on US soybeans, China imposed a 3-year plan to reduce the amount of soybean meal in animal feeds. Who do you think has the upper hand in this trade war? I want to know your opinions and answers in the comments below. But if you are interested in videos about financial stories, new technologies, and business tips and ideas, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notify bell for upcoming videos. Trump declared that the US would impose a 25% tariff on over $50 billion of Chinese exports. China stated that the US is launching a trade war, and they would respond with similar tariffs on US imports starting July 6 that year. 3 days later, the US announced another 10% tariffs on another $200 billion worth of Chinese products. By 2019, the trade war was still ravaging. Although the exchange of tariffs is damaging the economies of the two countries, China still has the upper hand. The US Department of Commerce stated that during the last year, the US trade deficit with China reached $621 billion, the highest it had been since 2008. On June 29, 2019, at the G20 summit in Osaka, Trump announced that he and Xi Jinping, the leader of China, has agreed to a truce in the trade war. He also stated that China is going to be buying a tremendous amount of food and agricultural product, and they're going to start that very soon, almost immediately. But China denied making such a comment, and China never bought anything. Trump tweeted that China is letting us down in that they have not been buying the agricultural products from our great farmers that they said they would. But the US was not the only country that was damaged in this trade war. Reports stated that China showed the slowest quarter GDP growth in 27 years, and its industrial output growth is falling. By the end of the year, the exchange of increased tariffs and banning of the purchase of products have damaged the economy of the two nations. China retaliated with lumber and wood products exports, resulting in American lumber mills slashing employment. The US also retaliated, putting 20 companies such as Hikvision, SenseTime, and Megvii on the Export Administration Regulations Entity List, citing human rights issues. Huawei was the main actor in this scenario, as they sanctioned and banned Huawei from buying vital parts, saying that it concerns national security reasons. 2020 and 2021 were considered as quiet years. As the pandemic ravages the economy of the two nations, it becomes a third party. The US granted exemptions to tariffs on various medical equipment, and China announced exemptions for tariffs too. By 2022, the WTO ruled that former President Donald Trump was in breach of global trade rules with his tariffs on steel and aluminum. However, the Biden administration disputed the rulings, stating that they would not change a thing with Trump's policies. And by 2023, the war continues on. The European Union also joined the trade war, blocking the sale of technology to China. And China retaliated by adding Raytheon and Lockheed Martin to its unreliable entities list. Now, the effects of the war are visible to both nations, but COVID damaged them more than each other. And as the rise of the economy of the two post-pandemic, we can only see what the trade war will become. But as the Chinese are slowly crawling towards an invasion of Taiwan, and the US supporting its allies, this cold trade war may turn hot, and real war may damage the economies of the two powerful nations beyond repair. But if you are interested in SpaceX's planned Mars mission or the hyped Tesla Cybertruck, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This is Finance Burr. Have a wonderful day.